Thanks. I'm a lazy speaker, so I only come when I'm absolutely needed. So this talks about dynamic configuration in service deployments. In terms of like our DevOps journey, I would say that RiksTV, where I work, is still quite early. We're still running most of our infrastructure at a classic hosting provider. We're only just starting to do cloudy things. So we, instead of just jumping full on to cloud and modern stuff, we asked ourselves, what do we need to start with? What will enable us to go there? And like you can see here, we have some Node applications and we do some Python PowerShell, but most of our stuff is C#. And this is what our C# config files used to look like, which meant that if I wanted a canary environment or something, that we would require code changes for probably 40 or 60 microservices. So that's config. Secrets was another problem. It's not all Kerberos anymore. There are secrets for Redis and Elasticsearch and DynamoDB and 1,000 other kind of backends. So we wanted to see if we could kind of simplify this. We wanted to see if we could have one config file, and we wanted to see if we could make it so that it was possible to stand up new environments quickly, and we wanted to see if we could keep secrets out of source control. So we started looking at two HashiCorp products, Consul and Vault, and we decided we're not smart enough to implement Vault, so we scrapped that for now. But Consul was a bit easier, so that was something that we could manage. So what we essentially built was a KV store on top of Consul, and it's a hierarchical KV store. And then on top of that again, we built some nice little UIs where developers can fill in either global variables for all environments, or more specific that kind of override the globals. We also plugged in with another kind of password secret management solution, so that we could kind of just, store the ID of the password instead of the ID. But then the problem is, how do we inject it? Do we want to inject it live, like upon change? We figured that was too risky. So we decided to, instead, we want to inject this at deploy time, because deploy is a controlled change. Also, we decided we wanted a cross-platform kind of thing. So we built it actually in Python, which compiles nicely to exe and also runs on Linux. And this is essentially what it looks when we deploy now. So it looks at very specific places in Consul first, and then more and more generic until it gets a hit. And if that thing looks like a password, it looks it up to a separate kind of password proxy that kind of injects the secret. The mapping files, the rule files, live together with the application, so developers have full control over what gets injected and how. So that was a good start, but then developers started talking to me about testing. And that kind of made sense. We wanted to make sure that these config files actually are valid JSON or whatnot. So the next thing we did was that we plugged in kind of a test harness into our Cake builds. We use Cake, which is like C# for make, so that all developers have to do is to write this little test snippet, and we actually verify that what they've done is somewhat right. And then the last step is, now that we're starting to experiment with Kubernetes, we actually, since we wrote this thing in Python, it runs nicely on top of our kind of Kubernetes deployment as well. So this is basically a secret file for our Kubernetes deployment that just gets replaced at deploy time based on the environment and the Kubernetes cluster and all of that. So this, again, is a Kubernetes deployment. And as you can see, it looks exactly the same. The only thing we had to add was a base64 parser to that thing, because Kubernetes expects a base64 encoded secret. So what we learned, we succeeded in catering to both devs and ops. And that was kind of maybe the first project at RiksTV that kind of took both requirements from devs and ops and kind of forced us together and discuss the design. The next, to be compatible but not dependent on our current tooling. So what's left for us now is I'm still waiting for dev to build a better front end because my bootstrap skills are very limited. So yeah, that's my quick and dirty talk, I guess. And I hope that's my last slide. Yeah, I think it is. OK, thanks.